Chapter 441. The 5 loose cultivator alchemists at the Golden Core stage, after being teleported into the secret realm, were intimidated by the imposing presence of the 4 nascent soul cultivators and dared not make any movements. Once the nascent soul cultivators left, the 5 were discussing their next move when they saw the people from the Xing and Jing families coming towards them. Jing Li's words, the thieves who trespassed into the secret realm, made their blood boil. They had clearly been invited by Xing Li Ren through various schemes. As expected, once the cunning rabbit dies, the hound is cooked. The 5 were not fools. When Xing Yishuan made her move, they immediately scattered and fled in different directions. However, one of the male cultivators, fleeing in a particular direction, happened to be heading towards Song Wen's position. Chasing the male cultivator was Xing Li Ren. A towering cold light mirror hovered above Xing Li Ren's head as he pursued. While chasing, he continuously activated the mirror. Blue ice spikes, each about a foot long, shot out from the mirror in rapid succession. The sound of the ice spikes piercing the air was constant, accompanied by a chilling aura that made the heart race. The fleeing male cultivator was startled and swiftly performed a movement technique, dodging to the left in an attempt to avoid the range of the ice spikes, but the ice spikes were too numerous and he could not avoid them. While escaping, he drew out a shield. After activating it, the shield emitted a bright yellow light, which then split into 4, forming rotating shields around him. The ice spikes collided with the shields, creating a series of resounding impacts, although the shield temporarily blocked the ice spikes. The yellow light on the shields flickered, indicating that it couldn't last much longer. Young Master Xing, I swear on my soul that I will never reveal anything about the secret realm or the heavenly spirit pill, the fleeing male cultivator pleaded. Only the dead can keep secrets, Xing Li Ren replied coldly. Back on Jimbao Peak, the 5 loose cultivators had chosen to watch from the sidelines, which seemed to have left a grudge in Xing Li Ren's heart. Even if the loose cultivators were willing to submit, he gave them no chance of survival. The male cultivator's eyes flashed with a moment of desperation. He suddenly bit his tongue and spat out a mouthful of essence blood. The essence blood transformed into a red light in the air, which quickly merged into the rotating shields around him. The shield's yellow light surged, and the rotation speed increased drastically, blocking all the ice spikes. Seeing this, Xing Li Ren sneered. As if mocking the cultivator's futile attempt to resist like a trapped beast, he quickly formed hand seals and the cold light mirror erupted with a burst of icy energy. More ice spikes condensed, densely covering the area as they shot towards the fleeing male cultivator. The cultivator used all his strength to defend, but the yellow light on the shield grew darker and darker, teetering on the edge of collapse. Song Wen sighed helplessly. He could no longer maintain his disguise. The fleeing male cultivator was too close to him, and the scattered ice spikes were heading directly toward him. Song Wen pushed off the ground with a powerful leap, his body shooting forward like an arrow, swiftly heading toward the distance. Didn't expect there's still a rat hiding here. Xing Li Ren's face showed a brief flash of surprise, but it quickly turned into a mocking smile as though he had discovered an interesting prey. Under his relentless assault, the fleeing male cultivator quickly fell, his body pierced by the dense ice spikes, turning into a bloody mess. Xing Li Ren's pursuit didn't slow as he followed Song Wen's direction. The two moved in tandem, one chasing and the other fleeing, and in no time they had exited the plaza, disappearing into the ghost mist. Without a trace, just as Xing Yishuan had finished off a loose cultivator, she happened to witness the scene. She warily scanned her surroundings and, confirming that the others weren't paying attention to her, silently followed after them. Gan Hong caught sight of Xing Yishuan's hurried departure and hesitated slightly. Then, with determination, he turned away, pretending he hadn't seen anything. "Fellow Taoist, I'll assist you," he shouted loudly and flew towards the horse-headed man, who was chasing the loose cultivator. Song Wen watched as Xing Li Ren drew closer, his expression slowly turning playful. He focused his mind and fired 3 large lightning spears toward Xing Li Ren. Xing Li Ren raised his hand toward the cold light mirror above his head, summoning a massive ice shield to meet the oncoming lightning spears. The lightning spears collided violently with the ice shield in midair, sending out an ear-splitting roar and blinding flashes of lightning. The shield shattered. The lightning spears also dissipated into nothing. Crack! A thunderous roar suddenly echoed from the sky. A bolt of lightning, about the size of a bowl, with a faint purple glow, broke through the ghost mist and charged toward Xingli Run lightning strike. Xingli Run looked up at the descending thunderbolt, and his expression turned more serious. This rat still has some strength. He quickly formed hand seals, and a thick ice shield materialized on the cold light mirror. The thunderbolt struck the ice shield. Lightning flashed. Ice fragments scattered. Xingli Ren's flying figure slightly descended, and his speed decreased slightly. He gave Songwen a cold, piercing glance and activated his internal energy, pushing his movement technique to its extreme. His speed suddenly increased, faster than before in no time. The two had traveled more than 10 miles and reached the foot of a high mountain. Songwen didn't ascend the mountain but instead continued to travel around its base. Rat, let's see how far you can run. Xingli Run had already closed the distance to within half a mile behind Songwen. The cold light mirror above his head suddenly burst with dazzling blue light, and an extremely chilling aura spread out from it. Countless ice spikes shot out from the blue light, accompanied by a murderous intent, aiming directly for Songwen's vital points. This attack was one Xingli Run had been preparing for a long time. He was confident that he could kill the rat in front of him with a single blow. At that moment, a silver firebird flew out of Songwen's body. The silver firebird was only about the size of a palm. It opened its beak and exhaled a burst of platinum-colored flames, the intense heat seeming to ignite the very air around it. The fire soared into the sky, transforming into a fire dragon over 10 feet long, instantly clashing with the ice spikes. Ice and fire collided. The fire dragon and ice spikes violently collided in midair, each melting into the other, generating clouds of mist. Spirit fire. Xingli Run furrowed his brows, a hint of confusion flashing in his eyes. In the chaotic sea, such pure yang spirit fire was rare. Where did this person get such a fire? Could it be that the person was a disciple of a major power? Although his heart was filled with suspicion, Xingli Ren's actions didn't slow down. The most powerful forces in the chaotic sea were the 3 families and 2 sects. And his Xing family didn't fear any of them. If he killed this person, the spirit fire would be his. Xingli Ren's internal energy surged like a tidal wave, and the cold light mirror emitted an even more blinding cold light. Freeze! Xingli Ren softly uttered. A large cloud of chilling, freezing mist poured out of the cold light mirror, sweeping toward the fire dragon like a winter storm. The mist quickly engulfed the fire dragon, and the freezing cold rapidly condensed into thick, solid ice, trapping the fire dragon within. This sealed off the fire dragon's heat, preventing it from releasing any more warmth. A bloodthirsty smile appeared on Xingli Ren's lips, and once again, a massive amount of cold mist sprayed out from the cold light mirror, aiming to freeze the silver firebird. The silver firebird flapped its wings and soared high into the air, opening its sharp beak once more and releasing a continuous stream of dark green flames. The green flames were extremely cold and ominous, clashing violently with the cold mist in midair. As the two forces met, both the cold mist and the dark green flames quickly turned into thick ice. So it even has a type of the cold in fire. Who exactly is this person? Xingli Ren's mind was filled with shock. Chapter 442. Xingli Ren's face gradually darkened. The fact that he could not kill Songwen was making him increasingly furious. This battle was no longer just about hunting a rat, it was about his reputation. As the direct descendant of the Xing family and a cultivator at the late Golden Core stage, how could he not defeat a cultivator at the early Golden Core stage? If this spread, what would be left of his face? Die! Xingli Ren roared. With his growl, the cold light mirror's chill intensified, and a massive ice spear, several meters wide, began to slowly form. The ice spear shot out in an instant with a sharp whistling sound. Where it passed, ice began to form rapidly, freezing the air itself. The ice spear was incredibly fast, like lightning crossing space, and in an instant it reached behind Songwen. The silver firebird seemed to have consumed too much spiritual flame and was now significantly weaker. As if it had its own intelligence, it knew it couldn't defend against the ice spear and automatically burrowed into Songwen's field. We are already dozens of miles away from the mountain. It's time to end this farce, Songwen thought to himself. While Xingli Ren chased after him, Songwen had also wanted to kill him. He had his eyes on the heavenly spirit pill that Xingli Ren had. Suddenly, two figures appeared on either side of Songwen. The silver corpse took the lead, charging straight toward the ice spear. The Ghost King followed closely, wielding a giant sword. The silver corpse remained expressionless, its form lightning fast as it intercepted the incoming ice spear. Its body gleamed with silver light. As if it were wearing an indestructible armor, the silver corpse reached out a claw to grasp the ice spear, and a powerful corpse energy surged from its hand. However, the ice spear was one of Xingli Ren's most powerful moves, and its power was terrifying. The corpse energy of the silver corpse only touched the ice spear before being swiftly eroded by the piercing cold, dissipating in an instant. The ice spear's momentum did not slow, and it stabbed toward the silver corpse's chest. The silver corpse's figure flickered as it desperately tried to avoid the strike, but the ice spear still grazed its shoulder. Immediately, the cold air invaded the silver corpse's body, and a thick layer of ice began to form on its surface at the same time. The silver corpse was knocked back. At that moment, the Ghost King, wielding the giant sword, slashed at the ice spear. The sword was surrounded by dark ghostly energy, exuding a powerful death aura. Despite the ice spear's hardness and cold, the Ghost King's sword collided with it, producing a sound like metal clashing. A massive shockwave spread out, and the Ghost King was forced to retreat several steps. Although the ice spear's speed was slightly reduced by the silver corpse and Ghost King's attacks, it continued to surge forward. Songwen's expression changed slightly. The power of Xingli Ren's ultimate attack was far greater than he had anticipated. The gap in cultivation between him and Xingli Ren was too large, and ordinary moves could hardly pose a threat to him. Songwen summoned a towering, profound earth pagoda. The moment the pagoda collided with the ice spear, it was easily sent flying, unable to block the ice spear in the slightest. Next, a large amount of black sinister energy surged from within Songwen's body, quickly coalescing into a giant black hand that slammed toward the ice spear. This was a secret technique from the Nine Hells Ghost Sutra. Bang! With a loud explosion, the black giant hand instantly shattered. The ice spear's speed slightly decreased. A green bell appeared around Songwen's body. The ice spear collided with the bell. The bell emitted a mournful sound. The bell barely held for a moment before shattering with a loud crash. At this point, it seemed that Songwen had exhausted all his methods and was cornered. At his wit's end, his eyes widened in fear and despair. Xingli Ren, in his victorious grin, showed a hint of contempt. A rat is still a rat no matter how many tricks it has. It is ultimately no match for the hunter's grasp. Just as Xingli Ren expected Songwen to die from the ice spear, he suddenly felt a sharp sense of danger. He sensed a tiny goo creeping up from behind. Xingli Ren's heart skipped a beat. The goo was moving at an incredibly fast speed, and it was only a few meters away from him. Had it been any other time, with his cultivation and alertness, he would have noticed the goo long before it got this close, but now, due to his overconfidence, he had become careless at this moment. It was too late to activate the cold light mirror for defense. Xingli Ren could only conjure a magic shield to block the goo. The moment the shield appeared, the shadow goo suddenly grew to the size of a basin and fiercely slammed into the shield. The shield flickered but did not break, however. The goo's sharp mandibles continuously cut at the shield, which began to shake and show signs of breaking. Scram! A long sword appeared in Xingli Ren's hand. He swung the sword around, turning to slash at the shadow goo. The goo suddenly shrank, narrowly avoiding the sword, but at the last moment it managed to bite through Xingli Ren's magic shield. Xingli Ren's full-force strike missed, and his body swayed, causing him to stumble. Before he could steady himself, a shadow flashed behind him. Songwen, who should have been shattered by the ice spear, appeared like a ghost behind him. Songwen was holding a long sword, his gaze cold as ice. With a swift movement of his right hand, the cold moon blade shot forward like a cold light, stabbing into Xingli Ren's lower back. In the face of imminent death, Xingli Ren's survival instinct flared. He endured the pain, gripping the sword that was embedded in his body. Even though his palm was torn by the sharp sword and blood splattered, he didn't dare to loosen his grip. At that moment, a yellow talisman appeared in his left hand. It was the soul-severing talisman. The talisman shattered, a transparent blade shot out, aiming straight for Songwen's forehead. The two were so close that Songwen had no time to react. The transparent blade was already heading toward his brow. Songwen's body shifted slightly, his face showing a brief moment of pain, but he was otherwise unharmed. Gritting his teeth, he channeled all his magical energy into the cold moonblade, hoping to pierce Xing Li Ren's field, but Xing Li Ren's strength was immense and his body was surrounded by a powerful magical shield. The cold moon blade only managed to penetrate half an inch before it was stopped. Xing Li Ren, seeing that Song Wen had survived the soul-severing talisman without harm, was filled with shock. Before he could analyze the situation further, he was about to activate the cold light mirror to repel Song Wen. However, he suddenly realized, to his horror, that sometime during the chaos, the goo had managed to crawl into his body through the wound on his waist. The goo traveled up his meridians, heading straight for his heart. Xing Li Ren could no longer focus on activating the cold light mirror and hurriedly redirected his magical energy to try and seal the goo inside. At that moment, Song Wen's hand transformed into a dried, claw-like appendage and reached for his face. Thud. Blood splattered. Song Wen's two sharp fingers pierced Xing Li Ren's eyes. Ah! Xing Li Ren cried out in agony, and the intense pain caused his magic to collapse, turning chaotic. The cold moon blade, with unstoppable momentum, stabbed deep into Xing Li Ren's body, piercing through his field. The magic within his field rapidly dissipated, and his last breath faded quickly. His eyes widened in disbelief. He had actually died at the hands of an early golden core cultivator. With a final, bitter sense of unwillingness, Xing Li Ren slowly lost his life. Chapter 443. Whoosh! A sharp, whistling sound pierced the air just as Song Wen was about to devour Xing Li Ren's soul and blood essence. He didn't have time to investigate where the attack had come from. In a hurry, he swiftly dodged to the left, leaping several meters away. In the critical moment, he didn't forget to sever one of Xing Li Ren's arms, which held a storage ring. At the same time, a surge of corpse aura erupted from Song Wen, coalescing into an egg-shaped black shield that enveloped his body. Only then did Song Wen focus on examining the artifact that had ambushed him. The artifact was conical, about a foot long, and appeared unremarkable at first glance. It was a specialized weapon designed for surprise attacks, concealing its killing intent within its form. The enemy's attack had missed, but they didn't give up. The conical artifact spun through the air and swiftly pursued Song Wen. It struck against the black shield in an instant. The tip of the cone emitted a dark, cold light, sharp and menacing. The black shield shattered under the intense pressure of the cone's tip, dissolving into the surrounding corpse aura, yet the conical artifact didn't lose momentum. Continuing forward until it crashed into a large green bell, the bell rang with a deep sound. The bell shattered like glass, breaking into pieces that scattered through the air, releasing a heavy blood mist. The conical artifact pierced through the blood mist. The wind from the artifact blew the mist apart, and Song Wen's figure disappeared without a trace. Well, this is an unexpected turn of events. I didn't expect to encounter this person again. A voice whispered softly through the blood mist. Xing Yishuan's figure emerged. She had been secretly trailing behind Xing Li Ren, careful not to get too close to avoid detection. Still, she had watched most of the battle between Song Wen and Xing Li Ren. Her original plan was for Xing Li Ren to defeat Song Wen, and when his guard was down, she would launch a sneak attack to capture him and force him to hand over the heavenly spirit pill. However, to her surprise, Xing Li Ren had been unable to withstand Song Wen's attack and had perished at his hands. This turn of events delighted Xing Yishuan. Xing Li Ren's death had nothing to do with her, and she could now use the excuse of avenging his death to kill Song Wen and claim the heavenly spirit pill. But her surprise attack had failed. Song Wen was quick to react and narrowly avoided her lethal strike. Ugh. What a waste, to die at the hands of an early-stage golden core cultivator. Xing Yishuan approached Xing Li Ren's lifeless body and spat disdainfully. Then she turned and walked away, showing no intention of recovering the corpse or destroying the evidence. It was better not to make a scene. She passed by a pile of shattered, decayed flesh. The broken flesh was covered in a thick layer of ice crystals, the remnants of Song Wen's puppet, which had been struck by the ice spear and left in ruins. Xing Yishuan furrowed her brow. This seems like the rumored technique of a death substitute puppet. Who exactly is this person to master so many rare and profound secret arts? She called the conical artifact back, observing a trace of blood on it. A cold smile appeared on her lips. Looks like you didn't fully evade the bone erosion cone. This time you won't escape. Xing Yishuan's fingers trembled slightly as a thread of magical power shot out, precisely wrapping around the bloodstain. The bloodstain, guided by the magical power, solidified into a blood bead floating in the air before her. Her hands began to form a series of complex gestures as the spell was channeled. The blood bead gradually twisted and deformed, eventually transforming into a blood-colored rune. Luckily, this person's evasion technique isn't able to escape too far. Otherwise, the blood curse tracking technique might not have succeeded, Xing Yishuan muttered to herself, performing a blood-related secret art. Xing Yishuan seemed to be quite exhausted. After briefly regulating her breathing, she lightly sighed, "Ha." The blood-colored runes suddenly sped up, flying deep into the ghostly mist. Xing Yishuan became a shadow, closely following the rune. Songwen fell out of the blood mist, his left waist torn with a gash, blood flowing profusely, a shocking sight. Fortunately, it was only an external injury and wasn't life-threatening. He circulated his magical energy to temporarily seal the wound and stop the bleeding. Songwen took out a healing pill and swallowed it without hesitation, not even taking time to circulate his energy to refine it. Instead, releasing his spiritual sense to scan his surroundings. Once he confirmed it was safe, he used his body technique and shot toward a nearby high mountain. Songwen knew very little about this secret realm and was cautious about encountering unknown dangers. For this reason, when he used the blood escape technique, he didn't go all out and only escaped around 30 meters, staying within the mountain's base range. Xing Yishuan could catch up at any moment. This place was not safe for prolonged stays. Songwen had already devised a plan in his mind. The higher he went, the denser the ghostly mist became. He intended to use the Corpse King reincarnation technique to resist the ghostly mist and climb along the mountain to escape Xing Yishuan. This high mountain had no signs of life. It was barren, with exposed rock and no trace of vegetation. Songwen kept close to the mountain, flying cautiously, and soon had climbed over 30 meters. The concentration of the ghostly mist here was 10 times denser than at the mountain base, almost as thick as the outer areas of the ghost domain. Songwen's spiritual sense could only reach about 10 meters. He figured that Xing Yishuan likely wouldn't venture this far. He slowed down his escape and began to search the area for a suitable place to heal. After climbing for several more meters, suddenly a platform appeared in front of Songwen. Due to the mist, visibility was poor, and with his spiritual sense limited, he couldn't tell what lay ahead of the platform. Songwen landed on the platform, cautiously stepping forward. After walking for a few hundred meters, a towering cave appeared before him. The entrance was several meters high, faintly visible through the ghostly mist. Resembling the gaping maw of a fierce beast, evoking a sense of dread, Songwen stared at the dark cave entrance, hesitating for a moment. He wasn't sure whether to enter or not. He had climbed from the base to here, and along the way he found that the mountain was exceptionally smooth, with no cracks or caves to hide in. The cave before him had obvious signs of being artificially carved, but these marks had been weathered by time, becoming faint and scattered. In secret realms, human-made ruins often hide treasures but also danger. This particular Mingshan Mountain's secret realm had been explored several times by the Xing family's nascent soul cultivators, and they still held the place in high regard. This indicated that the Xing family had not yet obtained the important treasures hidden within. This showed the potential danger of the secret realm. Just at this moment, the ghostly mist above suddenly began to churn violently. A vengeful spirit shot out from the mist. This vengeful spirit was extremely strange in appearance. It had 3 human heads, a snake-like body, 4 arms, and several insect-like legs. Each of the 3 heads was twisted and terrifying, revealing endless resentment and pain. It appeared to be a fusion of multiple souls forced together by some unknown power into this distorted, monstrous form. Chapter 444. The 3 twisted heads of the vengeful spirit all suddenly opened wide, revealing blood-red mouths like black holes. Screech, screech. The 3 mouths of the vengeful spirit emitted a sharp, piercing wail in unison. The sound was unbearably harsh, seeming to penetrate the sea of consciousness and echo deep into the soul. Songwen felt as though 1,000 arrows were stabbing into his brain, threatening to tear his soul apart. A sharp, unbearable pain spread from his sea of consciousness. Suddenly, a black hole appeared within his mind, resembling an endless abyss, devouring all the shrill screeches. The sharp pain in his sea of consciousness vanished instantly. A shadow flashed. The imposing figure of the Ghost King suddenly appeared, defending Songwen. The Ghost King wielded a giant sword and swung it at the vengeful spirit. The vengeful spirit swung its 4 arms to block the massive sword. The giant sword collided violently with the 4 arms in midair, and a powerful residual force swept out like a storm, stirring the surrounding ghostly mist. The Ghost King staggered back a few steps, barely maintaining its balance. The vengeful spirit and the Ghost King were of roughly equal strength, both at the initial stage of the 3rd level. However, in this dense ghostly mist, the vengeful spirit seemed more at home, as though it thrived in this environment. Song Wen's hands began to glow with silver lightning. 2 large lightning orbs, about the size of a washbasin, quickly formed. He swung his hand, sending the 2 lightning orbs crashing toward the vengeful spirit. Boom! A deafening explosion rang out. The lightning burst forth in an instant, enveloping the entire vengeful spirit. Lightning magic was known to be one of the most effective against ghostly beings, and even Song Wen's most basic Thunder Palm technique proved to be highly effective in suppressing the vengeful spirit. The lightning raged over the vengeful spirit, causing it to freeze midair. Its soul trembled violently, and large amounts of ghostly energy were obliterated. The vengeful spirit's attack methods were rather simple. Aside from using its shrill scream as a spiritual sense assault, it only engaged in close combat. It struggled, attempting to pounce on Song Wen again. A sharp, 1-inch-long blade suddenly flew out from the center of Song Wen's forehead. The blade bypassed the Ghost King and targeted the vengeful spirit's soul. When the blade pierced one of the vengeful spirit's heads, it instantly froze, as if it had been struck by an intense chill, becoming motionless. Then, the blade unleashed an invisible force, causing the head to explode in an instant, scattering into pure ghostly energy that floated away. Driven by its instinct for survival, the vengeful spirit changed direction and began fleeing upward. Song Wen wouldn't let it escape so easily. The vengeful spirit was an excellent material for enhancing spiritual sense. 3 long lightning spears suddenly formed, shooting rapidly toward the fleeing vengeful spirit. The lightning gleamed. The 3 lightning spears all launched at once. The lightning surged like a violent flood, tearing through the vengeful spirit's soul. Large amounts of ghostly energy were shattered, and the vengeful spirit's soul became increasingly ethereal, no longer as solid as before, with the lightning ravaging it. The vengeful spirit's speed drastically slowed. Song Wen seized the opportunity. Pressing his hand onto the vengeful spirit's body, a powerful suction force emanated from Song Wen's body. The vengeful spirit seemed to sense the impending doom. It screamed desperately, its soul struggling with all its might. However, all of it was in vain. The vengeful spirit was gravely injured and ultimately could not escape the pull of the suction force. It let out one final, desperate screech, before losing all resistance and being dragged into Song Wen's sea of consciousness, swallowed by the black hole within. After dealing with the vengeful spirit, Song Wen stood still for a moment to catch his breath and plan his next move. When he heard movement coming from behind, Song Wen furrowed his brow, realizing that the battle with the vengeful spirit had likely been noticed, and someone was coming to investigate. Could it be a nascent soul cultivator? Song Wen speculated inwardly, becoming more alert. No matter who was coming, Song Wen did not want to face them. He focused, and a corpse puppet at the late stage of the 1st level suddenly appeared in front of him. This corpse puppet had been abandoned for some time. Originally at the early stage of the 1st level, it had gradually weakened due to prolonged neglect. Despite being nourished in a corpse-refining coffin, its strength had inevitably declined. Song Wen injected a surge of spiritual energy into the corpse puppet's body, and it charged into the cave. The spiritual energy could not stay within the corpse puppet's body and kept leaking out. Song Wen performed a quick movement technique and flew into the air. He guessed that the person approaching might be a nascent soul cultivator. And since this cave was obviously a secret realm the person might enter to investigate, Song Wen couldn't afford to enter the cave now. If it had no other exit, he would be trapped inside. As for the corpse puppet, it was just a distraction to confuse the approaching person. As Song Wen suspected, the person wasn't a nascent soul cultivator, but rather Xingyi. She had followed Song Wen's faint blood trail, using blood-based secret techniques to track him. There are remnants of the vengeful spirit's soul here. The person must have just left, Xingyi murmured to herself. A brief flash of green light appeared in her eyes, and then her brows furrowed in confusion, although the person was clearly alone. She sensed two distinct residual auras at the location. One trace ascended toward the sky, weak and elusive, difficult to pinpoint. The other trace led deeper into the cave, with a distinct spiritual energy mixed with thick corpse energy, suggesting it was from a corpse. Cultivation practitioner, why is there another person? Xing Yishuan muttered to herself. After a moment of thought, she decided to explore the deeper part of the cave. One trace was faint and one clear, and ordinary people would likely think that the obvious trace was deliberately planted as a distraction. However, Xing Yishuan decided to go against her initial assumption. She had witnessed Song Wen's battle with Xing Li Ren and knew well how cunning Song Wen was. Thus, she figured Song Wen wouldn't leave such an obvious trace to hide his movements. The cave wasn't deep, only a few miles long. Xing Yishuan soon arrived at the cave's depths. It was a vast underground hall. Inside the hall were hundreds of stone platforms. Had Song Wen been here, he would have immediately recognized the purpose of these platforms. They were identical to the dissecting tables in the corpse demon sex corpse dissection cave, with even the layout of the underground hall bearing a striking resemblance. The only difference was that these dissecting tables were much larger, clearly intended for dissecting demon corpses rather than human ones. The corpse puppet Song Wen sent into the cave had already been torn into pieces by a few vengeful spirits as soon as Xing Yishuan stepped into the underground hall. She was ambushed by 5 vengeful spirits at the 3rd level. Luckily, she was cautious and noticed the vengeful spirits in time, fleeing, but her sea of consciousness suffered significant damage. While being pursued by the vengeful spirits, she had just escaped the cave when she saw a figure falling from the sky, landing heavily on a platform. It was none other than Song Wen, who had seemingly escaped earlier. Chapter 445. Song Wen commanded the corpse puppet to charge into the cave while he flew upward, heading for the mountaintop. After flying several miles, he turned and headed back toward the foot of the mountain. The higher he went, the stronger the vengeful spirits became. At the height he was at, about 60 miles above the ground, there were already 3rd-level vengeful spirits lurking. Song Wen didn't dare to continue higher, fearing he might encounter a 4th-level vengeful spirit. At that point, even with the assistance of his sea of consciousness black hole, he would likely not escape the vengeful spirit's deadly grasp. Just after flying about 10 miles down the mountain, he unexpectedly ran into someone he hadn't anticipated: Jing Lai. Xing Yishuan had been scheming to acquire the heavenly spirit pill from Xing Li Ren's body, and Jing Lai had long coveted it as well. At the square at the foot of the mountain, Jing Lai had noticed that Xing Yishuan had followed Xing Li Ren. He had quietly trailed behind her, waiting for an opportunity to act. However, he had followed from a distance and thus had been able to witness Song Wen's battle with Xing Li Ren. By the time he arrived at the battlefield, only Xing Li Ren's corpse was left. Lying alone there, Xing Li Ren's soul had already been eroded by ghostly mist and transformed into a vengeful spirit. Instinctively, Jing Lai assumed that Xing Li Ren had died at Xing Yishuan's hands, so he collected Xing Li Ren's body and subdued the vengeful spirit that had taken over his soul. Planning to use the harm to the human race excuse to threaten Xing Yishuan into handing over the heavenly spirit pill, Jing Lai had been chasing Xing Yishuan's trail when he ran into Song Wen, who was heading down the mountain. "It's you. How did you survive?" Jing Lai looked at Song Wen in surprise. In his estimation, with Song Wen's early-stage golden core cultivation, he should have already been killed by Xing Li Ren. "Where is Xing Yishuan?" Jing Lai asked. He intended to gather some crucial information from Song Wen and didn't rush into attacking. Song Wen warily stared at Jing Lai, cursing his bad luck in his heart. He hadn't encountered Xing Yishuan yet, and thus had no idea that the person who appeared near the cave was her. However, that didn't stop Song Wen from leading Jing Lai astray. Xing Yishuan entered a cave about 10 miles up, he said. Jing Lai narrowed his eyes, his gaze turning suspicious. He suddenly realized that his earlier assumption about Xing Li Ren's death might be incorrect. Jing Lai coldly asked, "You're not telling the truth, are you? With your early-stage golden core cultivation, how did you escape Xing Li Ren's hands? And why are you up at such a high altitude? There are 3rd-level vengeful spirits around here." Suddenly, a flash of insight appeared in Jing Lai's mind, as though he had figured something out. "You didn't just happen to climb to this height. You were chased here by Xing Yishuan. Could it be Xing Li Ren died at your hands?" he said. his expression suddenly revealing a look of realization. His eyes gleaming with excitement. Song Wen's heart skipped a beat, and he immediately turned to flee. Fleeing? Do you think you can escape? Hand over the heavenly spirit pill, and I might spare your life. Jinglai roared. He wasn't slow to act. The flag of Wind Dragon appeared in his hand. He waved the flag lightly. In an instant, a fierce wind surged. Ghostly mist rolled like a tidal wave. Countless wind blades shot out like arrows, gathering into a massive blade storm of cutting winds. The air around seemed to be torn apart by the storm, the sharp, piercing wind sounds ringing like the mocking laughter of death. Echoing through the air, Song Wen felt the pressure of the blade storm coming from behind, and his expression darkened. Tensing up, the profound earth treasure pagoda, the ghost head shield, and the spirit bell shield appeared around him, enveloping him in defense. The blade storm, like autumn winds sweeping leaves, tore through the profound earth treasure pagoda, sent the ghost head shield and spirit bell shield flying, and shredded them to pieces. Yet, there was no sign of Song Wen. Instead, a dense cloud of blood mist emerged. Upon seeing this, Jinglai's eyes flashed with sharp excitement. Escape technique? Jinglai's eyes suddenly gleamed with a peculiar green light. The eerie glow resembled ghostly flames flickering in the darkness, leaping ceaselessly as though capable of piercing through the shrouded ghostly mist. This was the Jing clan's secret technique, the Eye of the Myriad Phenomena. Using this ability, Jinglai captured sight of Song Wen's figure. He quickly activated the flag of Wind Dragon again. Wind Prison Cage. With a low growl, an invisible force surged in the air. The surrounding currents became violently turbulent. In the space several hundred feet in front of Jinglai, a massive wind wall rapidly took shape. The wind wall, formed by intertwining vortexes, soared dozens of feet high and stretched for over a mile. Boom! With a muffled sound, Song Wen's figure suddenly appeared. The abrupt manifestation of the wind wall blocked Song Wen's path, forcibly interrupting his blood escape technique. The moment he collided with the wind wall, Song Wen felt as though he had slammed into an indestructible stone wall. The enormous impact made his vision go black, and it seemed as though all the bones in his body were on the verge of shattering. Rebounding off the wall, Song Wen staggered back several feet before barely stabilizing himself in midair. There was no time to catch his breath. Song Wen immediately turned and dashed downward. Jinglai smirked coldly. Still trying to escape? Your escape techniques are useless now. Let's see where you can run. He swung the flag of Wind Dragon again. This time, another wind wall materialized several hundred feet below. Seeing himself about to crash into the wall, a flash of lightning suddenly burst from Song Wen's palm as he struck his forehead with his hand. Amid the pitch-black ghostly mist, the lightning burst into brilliance. With a crisp sound, Song Wen's head exploded instantly. His lifeless body fell helplessly, slamming onto the impenetrable wind wall below. The scene unfolded so abruptly that Jinglai stood frozen for a moment, unable to react. His mocking smile froze on his face, his eyes widening in disbelief. This can't be possible? Jinglai murmured, stunned. He actually committed suicide? While Jinglai was in a daze, a shadow suddenly flickered several hundred feet above him, and Song Wen's figure reappeared without warning. Song Wen had used a substitute puppet to absorb the fatal damage, then activated the focus spirit stab to break through the ghostly mist's interference with his spiritual senses. Without hesitation, he used thunder escape technique to ascend rapidly into the sky. The commotion caused by Song Wen's sudden reappearance caught Jinglai's attention. He looked up in shock. Not dead? What kind of secret art is this? Jinglai didn't have time to dwell on it. He shot into the air while waving the flag of Wind Dragon again. As the flag rippled, countless wind blades swarmed upward like a tide, blanketing the sky. Given the current situation and not knowing Song Wen's exact location, Jinglai opted for a wide-range attack. This tactic not only disrupted Song Wen's speed but also allowed Jinglai to determine his position through the breaking sounds of wind blades. As Jinglai anticipated, a sound of wind blades shattering came from somewhere above. His eyes lit up, Adjusting his trajectory slightly, he flew toward the source of the noise. The flag of Wind Dragon waved again. Roar! A deafening dragon roar resounded as a massive wind dragon materialized out of thin air. The wind dragon surged skyward, whipping up fierce winds that churned the surrounding ghostly mist into chaos. As seeing the wind dragon charging toward him, Songwon hastily summoned the ghost head shield and the spirit bell shield to protect himself. At the same time, he unleashed Great Cave God Thunder, aiming it at the incoming wind dragon. Chapter 446. Rumble. Thunder roared. Lightning erupted across the wind dragon's body like blossoming silver flowers. The lightning resembled countless silver serpents slithering through the wind dragon. Attempting to tear it apart from within, the wind dragon's body shrank noticeably. But it did not stop. It continued its ferocious assault towards Songwon with a flick of its tail. It lashed out at Songwon with immense force. Snap! A deafening impact echoed. Songwon felt as though he had been struck by a massive hammer. His ghost head shield shattered instantly. Though the spirit bell shield green bell managed to barely hold on, however, the tremendous impact sent Songwon spiraling out of balance. His body fell like a meteor from the sky, crashing heavily onto the stone platform in front of a cave. The ground cracked under the impact, scattering debris and rocks. Xing Yishuan watched as Songwon plummeted, a flash of surprise flickering in her eyes. Her greed for the heavenly spirit pill momentarily slowed her down. Just as she was about to turn back and slay Songwon, 5 third-tier wraiths emerged from the cave one after another. These 5 wraiths, each grotesquely distorted and monstrous, resembled hybrids of various creatures. Their twisted forms and ghastly faces looked like horrors clawed out of the depths of hell. The wraiths opened their mouths to unleash furious roars, their piercing screeches, akin to countless vengeful spirits wailing in unison. The sound was chillingly harrowing. Each howl directly attacked the depths of the soul, sending shockwaves through one's spiritual sea. In front of Xing Yishuan hovered a pale, bone-like artifact radiating a dim white glow, casting an eerie light on her. This artifact, a soul defense treasure, was a lower-grade magical item. Although rare, it could not fully withstand the spiritual assaults of 5 third-tier wraiths. Xing Yishuan felt as though her soul was being torn apart by the shrieking wails. The excruciating pain was like countless steel needles piercing her mind. Her heartbeat quickened, her breath grew labored, and her trembling body betrayed her immense suffering. 3 of the 5 wraiths seized the opportunity to lunge at her. Each of these wraiths possessed late third-tier strength. Suppressing the pain, Xing Yishuan retreated swiftly. At the same time, a transparent blade emerged from her forehead. The blade, only a few inches long, streaked through the air like lightning and pierced into the head of one of the wraiths. The wraith's roar abruptly ceased. Its figure froze for a moment but did not collapse. Xing Yishuan had only mastered the first layer of the focused spirit stab, insufficient to kill a late third-tier wraith in one strike. The wraith's spectral body flickered for a brief moment before resuming its advance toward Xing Yishuan. At that moment, the ghostly mist in front of the cave churned violently. Jinglai had arrived. He quickly grasped the situation at a glance. With a wave of the wind dragon flag, a wall of wind formed before him. He then retreated explosively, withdrawing over 30 feet before coming to a stop. At this distance, the wraith's screeches exerted far less pressure on his spiritual sea. Falling within a tolerable range, the wind wall conveniently blocked Xing Yishuan's retreat path. Her face immediately filled with alarm as she shouted in fury, "Jinglai, what do you think you're doing? Hand over the heavenly spirit pill and I'll help you deal with these wraiths." Jinglai declared loudly. "The heavenly spirit pill isn't on. Might was taken by that rogue cultivator," she retorted angrily. Xing Yishuan summoned the flag of waves. Waving it vigorously, several massive streams of water materialized abruptly, crisscrossing in midair. The water pillars, seemingly alive, danced under Xing Yishuan's control, blocking the wraith's approach. Her statement confirmed Jinglai's earlier suspicions. He pressed further. Where did that rogue cultivator flee to? By the time Jinglai had arrived, Songwen's figure was nowhere to be seen on the platform, gritting her teeth against the excruciating pain in her spiritual sea. Xing Yishuan replied, "He fled into the cave." Jinglai intensified the power of his wind dragon flag, reinforcing the wind wall, and said, "Impossible. You, a peak golden core cultivator, struggle against the wraith's spiritual assaults. How could someone at the early Golden Core stage escape their pursuit unscathed? Xing Yishuan responded, I don't know, perhaps he possesses a soul defense treasure capable of shielding him from the attacks. As she spoke, another focused spirit stab flew from the center of her forehead, targeting the already injured wraith. The wraith's soul body became even more ephemeral, its strength significantly diminished, reducing its threat to Xing Yishuan. Jing Lai's voice turned cold. If that's the case, then you can die here. At his words, the wind wall abruptly collapsed. A massive wind pillar surged through the layers of ghostly mist, roaring as it hurtled toward Xing Yishuan. Her expression turned icy. Gritting her teeth, she growled, Jing Lai, I'll remember this grudge. In both of her hands, she now held a soul-severing talisman. The two talismans shattered simultaneously, releasing two spiritual blades that locked onto separate wraiths. With two faint yet sharp sounds, the targeted wraiths froze mid-roar. Their bodies convulsed violently before their soul forms suddenly exploded into countless fragments, scattering in all directions. Of the three wraiths pursuing Xing Yishuan, two were killed outright and the remaining one, injured, fled toward the cave. While slaying the two wraiths, Xing Yishuan acted swiftly. Channeling her flag of waves, she conjured a towering water wall several zhang high behind her. The incoming wind pillar, roaring like a dragon, collided with the water wall at the moment of impact. An ear-splitting explosion rang out as if the heavens and earth trembled under the force. Boom. The water wall burst apart, scattering countless droplets in all directions. The wind pillar gradually dissipated, vanishing into nothingness. Jing Lai's expression shifted unpredictably. He clearly hadn't anticipated Xing Yishuan possessing two soul-severing talismans, allowing her to emerge unscathed despite being caught between his attacks and the wraiths. Jing Lai, die. Xing Yishuan roared furiously, waving her flag of waves. She channeled her power to summon a massive water dragon over 30 zhang long, which lunged at Jing Lai. Jing Lai glanced reluctantly toward the cave. His wind-based spells offered little advantage against the wraiths. With Songwen now inside the cave and numerous wraiths lurking within, he knew venturing in was not an option. Making a swift decision, Jing Lai's figure flickered as he retreated rapidly. At the same time, a wind wall formed behind him, blocking the water dragon and buying him precious time to escape. As Jing Lai's silhouette vanished into the ghostly mist, Xing Yishuan made no move to pursue him. Jing Lai's strength and mastery of wind techniques made him exceptionally fast, and catching him would be nearly impossible. She turned her gaze toward the dark, foreboding cave, positioning herself at its entrance. To Xing Yishuan, the cave undoubtedly housed numerous wraiths. Even if Songwen possessed a soul defense treasure, he would not last long against the relentless spiritual assaults. It was only a matter of time before he was forced to flee from the cave. She merely needed to bide her time outside, waiting for Songwen to walk into her trap. When that moment came, she would kill him in one swift strike. The heavenly spirit pill and the many secret arts in his possession would naturally fall into her hands. Chapter 447. Songwen crashed onto the platform only to see two wraiths charging at him. Relying on the black hole within his spiritual sea, he resisted the piercing howls of the wraiths. He raised his hand and unleashed two thunder palms. The thunderclaps carried the majestic might of the heavens, their power devastating against the wraiths. When the thunder palms exploded on the wraiths, their forms froze momentarily. Seizing the opportunity, Songwen pushed off with great force, his body darting forward like an arrow. As he dashed into the cave, the two wraiths, surrounded by dense black mist, gradually dispelled the lingering thunder energy, though their soul forms appeared slightly dimmed, freed from the thunder's suppression. The two wraiths pursued Songwen relentlessly, following him into the dark depths of the cave. Moments later, Songwen reached a large hall deep within the cave. Recognizing the familiar layout inside, a trace of surprise flashed across his face. Suddenly, 6 wraiths burst out from various corners of the hall without warning, all third-tier wraiths. The moment they spotted Songwen, they opened their gaping maws, letting out successive piercing shrieks. Behind him, the two pursuing wraiths closed in. The combined shrieks of 8 third-tier wraiths caused excruciating pain in Songwen's head, but he held firm. The black hole in his spiritual sea acted as an impenetrable barrier, shielding his consciousness and preventing any real harm from the wraith's attacks. Songwen activated his thunder escape technique, his body enveloped in flashes of lightning as he skirted along the walls of the hall. Within the corpse demon sex dissection cave, there was often a temporary steward's chamber, Given the similarity of this underground hall to those he knew, it was highly likely that a similar chamber existed here. As long as Song Wen could enter the temporary chamber, he could avoid being surrounded. After advancing less than half a mile, he suddenly spotted a deep passage. Without hesitation, Song Wen darted into the passage, summoning a surge of lightning to seal its entrance temporarily. To his surprise, this area wasn't a steward's chamber but rather a passageway. After traversing the passage for about a mile, he arrived at another underground hall. He quickly scanned the hall, discovering it was relatively small, spanning only about a mile in diameter. At the center of the hall lay a toppled bronze furnace, several meters tall. The furnace had an ancient, simple design, engraved with dense, intricate runes. However, the spaces between the runes were tarnished with verdigris, making it appear mottled and aged. The furnace seemed to have been toppled deliberately. The portion of the furnace touching the ground was visibly damaged, and its lid lay dozens of meters away. This appears to be a blood refining cave, though it's already been looted. Song Wen speculated the corpse demon sex dissection caves belonged to the blood refining hall, where collected blood would be sent to refine essence blood. However, in the sex hierarchy, the dissection caves and blood refining caves were usually separate. Here, they seemed interconnected. The nascent soul cultivators from the Xing family had explored this secret realm multiple times and had likely investigated this cave. The bronze furnace was likely an extraordinary artifact in its prime, but the passage of time had stripped it of its spiritual essence. Thus, it was discarded by the Xing family's cultivators. The blood refining cave had no wraiths, providing Song Wen a moment of relief. Suddenly, he heard a commotion behind him. The wraiths had broken through the lightning seal and were now rushing down the passage toward the blood refining cave. Song Wen opened his mouth and released a silver firebird. The firebird spewed a torrent of white gold flames, sealing the passage completely. The jade light flame, though not as destructive to ghostly entities as thunder techniques, excelled in its long-lasting burn, effectively delaying the wraith's advance into the blood-refining cave. Song Wen unleashed the lightning strike once more in the narrow passage. The thunder's ferocity erupted like the wrathful roar of a celestial god. Lightning flashed, illuminating the entire tunnel. Amidst the dazzling brilliance, the ghostly mist dissipated rapidly, like snow under the spring sun, under the oppressive might of heavenly thunder. All evil and darkness had nowhere to hide. The wraiths, sensing an instinctive fear that pierced their very souls, quickly retreated, vanishing into the depths of the passage. Having temporarily repelled the wraiths, Song Wen let out a small sigh of relief. He channeled his spiritual power and gestured toward the bronze furnace. The furnace lifted into the air and floated toward him. Yet, just as it rose halfway, it suddenly broke apart into dozens of pieces, scattering across the ground. Song Wen, who had hoped to salvage a valuable item, was left speechless. Anything discarded by others is unlikely to be a treasure, he muttered to himself, leaping forward. He arrived at the center of the hall, where the furnace had originally stood. There, he found a deep pit, several meters deep, just large enough to hold the furnace. Using his spiritual sense to probe the pit, he found it completely empty. Shaking his head, Song Wen turned away and searched along the cave walls but found nothing of value. This blood-refining cave contained neither treasures nor an exit, leaving him trapped. Suddenly, there was movement in the passage again. The thunder's deterrent had faded, and the wraiths were once more stirring and creeping into the passage. Looking toward the tunnel, Song Wen frowned deeply, his expression heavy. There were too many wraiths for him to handle alone. Moreover, he needed these wraiths to hold back the pursuers outside. Uncertain of the situation beyond the cave, Song Wen had to prepare for the worst, simultaneously facing Xing Yishuan and Jing Lai's pursuit. If I can cultivate focused spirit stab to the 5th layer, I could attack their spiritual seas, even if I can't severely injure them, temporarily disrupting their spellcasting, combined with my blood escape technique and corpse substitution technique, might allow me to escape. This thought flashed through Song Wen's mind. He had acquired Xing Li Ren's storage ring, which contained heaven spirit pills, fulfilling the requirements to cultivate the 5th layer of the focused spirit stab. But the wraiths were relentless, giving him no chance to meditate and train in peace. Although lightning techniques were powerful with unparalleled explosive force, they were difficult to sustain and couldn't provide prolonged defense against the wraiths. Song Wen's chi reserves wouldn't allow him to continuously cast lightning techniques either, as his power would eventually deplete. If I could create a sustained lightning effect, I could break through this predicament. As this realization struck him, Song Wen's eyes lit up, the evil extermination sword formation. If he could use the sword formation to seal the passage, the wraiths would dare not approach. With a single thought, 9 high-grade spirit swords appeared before him, though not deeply versed in the formation. Song Wen had practiced it during idle times and could deploy it with some effort. The 9 flying swords streaked out in succession, positioning themselves within the passage according to the formation's layout. Lightning strike. With a soft incantation, Song Wen activated the technique. Each of the 9 swords emitted a stream of lightning, crackling with majestic heavenly power. The arcs of electricity wove together into a dense lightning web from a distance. The passage now appeared as though a massive lightning sphere had sealed it completely. Having been terrified by the previous 2 bouts of lightning strike, the wraiths, like startled birds, dared not step near the lightning sphere formed by the sword formation. This alleviated much of Song Wen's burden. With minimal expenditure of mana and mental effort, he could maintain the sword formation's operation, ensuring his safety for the time being. Chapter 448. With the evil extermination sword formation in place, Song Wen still didn't feel entirely secure. He released the Ghost King to monitor the surroundings and set up the Yin-Yang 4 symbols formation within the blood-refining cave. Finally gaining some peace of mind, surveying the area, his gaze ultimately settled on the deep pit in the center of the cave. He decided to train within it. Descending into the pit, he found the bottom stained a deep crimson as though the ground had been soaked in blood for years, leaving permanent marks. Unfazed by this, Song Wen sat cross-legged and retrieved the jade slip containing the cultivation method for the second layer of the focused spirit stab. Using his spiritual sense, he began carefully studying it. Compared to the first layer, the second layer of the focused spirit stab was significantly more challenging. Cultivating the second layer required not only the ability to mobilize a greater portion of spiritual sense but also to condense it into spiritual blades. This greatly increased the difficulty, but its power was also more than tenfold stronger. Moreover, the second layer required practitioners to split their spiritual sense and form multiple spiritual blades. With a maximum of 3 at once, Song Wen immersed himself in training within the blood-refining cave, and time quickly passed. Half a year in the blink of an eye. During this time, he consumed medicinal pills several times to replenish his chi. Although the evil extermination sword formation remained unchallenged by the wraiths and consumed little spiritual chi, it wasn't entirely without cost. To ensure he stayed in peak condition and maintained sufficient spiritual chi, Song Wen remained vigilant. One day, Song Wen swallowed a heaven spirit pill. The pill transformed into an invisible force that surged into his sea of consciousness. With its assistance, a 2-inch translucent blade slowly formed at the center of his brow. Moments later, a second blade also materialized. Currently, forming 2 spiritual blades was the limit of Song Wen's capabilities. Creating a third would require the spiritual sense strength of a late-stage golden core cultivator. The 2 blades hovered around him, fluttering like butterflies, light and nimble. After some practice, Song Wen retracted the blades into his sea of consciousness. The spiritual blades were condensed from his spiritual sense, and deploying them would deplete his reserves. With danger lurking everywhere, he had to conserve every ounce of strength for unexpected situations. Standing up, Song Wen looked down at the bottom of the pit with a peculiar expression. In a small area at the pit center, the previously dark crimson ground had taken on a brighter red hue, as if something had been awakened by the aura of his living body. He had noticed this anomaly 5 months ago but hadn't paid much attention to it at the time. However, over the months, this patch had turned progressively redder, now a deep scarlet, distinct from the surrounding area. After a moment's thought, Song Wen refrained from acting rashly. Instead, he used his spiritual chi to summon the broken base of the bronze furnace. Upon close inspection, he found a needle-sized hole in the furnace base. If the base were placed in the pit, the hole would align perfectly with the center of the discolored area. Suddenly, a surge of corpse energy radiated from Song Wen, and his hand transformed into a dark claw, poised to dig into The red area, but a sense of unease made him pause. Withdrawing his corpse energy, he stepped back to the edge of the pit. Songwon summoned a flying sword, intending to use it to cut through the pit's surface. After a moment's hesitation, he still felt uneasy. He retreated further, moving to the entrance of the blood-refining cave, ready to dismantle the sword formation and flee at a moment's notice. At this point, the Ghost King, who had been stationed at the entrance monitoring the wraiths, made its move. It descended into the pit, wielding its ghostly sword. The Ghost King began cutting along the edges of the discolored area. To Songwen's relief, the danger he feared didn't materialize. However, the Ghost King's cutting was far from smooth. The rock at the bottom of the pit was extraordinarily tough, seemingly treated with special methods. It was also inscribed with formation patterns, though these had long since lost their efficacy due to the passage of time. After a meal's worth of time, the Ghost King finally managed to cut out the discolored area. It carried a crimson object over to Songwen. The object was a foot in length, width, and thickness, resembling a paving stone. The Ghost King struggled slightly as it held the object aloft with its ghostly energy, indicating it was exceptionally heavy. Songwen stared at the blood brick for a long time but could discern nothing unusual. It emitted no spiritual energy fluctuations or sinister aura, appearing to be nothing more than an ordinary crimson stone. Reaching out, Songwen took the blood brick from the Ghost King. His arm immediately sank under its weight, nearly dropping it. The brick's weight was astonishing, easily reaching tens of thousands of dawn. If this object could be refined into a magical artifact, simply smashing it onto an opponent could be lethal to a Foundation establishment cultivator. Suddenly, Songwen's expression changed, and he hurriedly tossed the brick away. The moment he held the blood brick, he felt a powerful surge of blood essence flow into his body. The sensation was identical to the feeling he experienced when he absorbed another's blood essence. Quickly mobilizing his spiritual sense, he scanned his body. A moment later, Songwen's expression relaxed slightly. Aside from an increase in his blood vitality, there were no abnormalities within him. Could this object be forged from countless streams of blood essence? Songwen murmured to himself, looking at the blood brick lying several feet away. The blood essence he had just absorbed was equivalent to the entire reserve of a Foundation establishment cultivator, yet for the blood brick, this amount seemed negligible. The brick remained unchanged. Who would create such a bizarre object? Songwen was baffled. The location, named Mingshan Mountain, likely had ties to the Nether Shrine, which could have been a base in the Chaotic Sea, and the Nether Shrine was affiliated with the Divine Blood Gate. Songwen couldn't help but be astonished, pondering just how powerful the Divine Blood Gate must have been in its prime. Such a formidable force, yet it had vanished without a trace over the course of tens of thousands of years. After confirming that the blood brick posed no immediate danger, Songwen stored it in his spatial ring without using any additional container. The blood brick's aura was completely sealed, with not a trace of its blood essence leaking out. This was likely the reason it had been so perfectly preserved over the ages without any loss. It was also why the cultivators of the Xing family hadn't detected its presence. Although Songwen didn't yet know the brick's specific purpose, he was certain that it would ensure a steady supply of blood essence for a long time. He even considered the possibility of selling excess blood essence for a fortune in spiritual stones. After storing the Ghost King back into the Ghost Banner, Songwen proceeded to the passageway of the blood-refining cave. His hands lit up with two orbs of lightning, ready for battle. Once fully prepared, Songwen abruptly deactivated the evil extermination sword formation. To his surprise, there was only one wraith in the passageway with no sign of the others. This wraith was enormous, standing several feet tall and possessing the strength of a late-stage Tier 3 creature. It had the head of a massive ox with eyes as red as blood, a humanoid body covered in scales, and a pair of enormous bird-like wings on its back. Crouching in the relatively narrow passage, it immediately charged at Songwen. Upon seeing the lightning orbs vanish, devoid of intelligence, it acted purely on instinct, lunging at him without hesitation. Chapter 449. Songwen's tense nerves slightly relaxed. Facing only one wraith made the fight much easier. He raised his hand and released two thunder palms. The wraith flapped its enormous wings, attempting to disperse the incoming bolts of lightning. However, the narrow passage severely restricted its movements. Unable to fully extend its wings, it had no time to change its strategy. The thunder palms struck the wraith's bull-like head, erupting into a dazzling flash of light and an ear-splitting Explosion, the passage shook violently as large chunks of rock fell from the ceiling, illuminated by the lightning. The wraith twisted its body in agony, letting out a sharp wail as a significant amount of ghostly energy was obliterated. Its aura weakened noticeably in an instant. Seizing the opportunity, 9 flying swords zipped past the wraith, embedding themselves in the ground behind it. The evil extermination sword formation activated, conjuring a massive sphere of lightning that once again sealed off the passageway. The commotion of the battle had already drawn the attention of other wraiths within the corpse-dissecting cave. Attracted by the sound, they began moving toward him, but the sword formation blocked their advance. Not daring to let his guard down, Songwon quickly performed a hand seal, unleashing the great cave divine thunder. Boom! A silver streak of lightning struck the bull-headed wraith, cascading down its body like a waterfall. The wraith froze on the spot, its movements paralyzed by the lightning spell. Billowing ghostly energy rose from its body, but it dissolved rapidly under the majestic divine thunder. Songwon seized the moment, charging forward and pressing his right hand against the wraith's head, piercing through the radiating lightning. A powerful devouring force emanated from his hand. The wraith, still struggling against the great cave divine thunder, had no strength to resist and was swiftly absorbed into the black hole in Songwon's sea of consciousness. Outside the passage, several wraiths continued to launch ferocious assaults against the sword formation. Each time they approached, however, the lightning emanating from the formation forced them back. After several fruitless attempts, the wraiths eventually quieted down. About half an hour later, when no further movements came from the passage, Songwon retracted the sword formation again. This time, only 2 tier 3 wraiths remained guarding the passage. The moment the formation disappeared, the 2 wraiths rushed headlong deeper into the passage. Songwon retreated swiftly. Moving back into the blood-refining cave, the 2 wraiths followed him into the cave without hesitation. Songwon repeated his earlier tactic. 3 lightning spears shot forward, temporarily restraining the 2 wraiths. He then resealed the passage with the sword formation. Using the great cave divine thunder, he weakened the wraiths before absorbing them one by one. By employing this method, Songwon managed to devour all 4 remaining wraiths within a little over an hour. With the wraiths cleared, Songwon moved into the corpse-dissecting cave. However, he didn't rush deeper into the cave. Instead, he concealed himself and quietly waited. The commotion from his earlier battle should have drawn the attention of anyone outside the cave. Songwon assumed that Xing Yishuan and Jing Lai would come to investigate the cave, but after waiting for half a day, no one showed up. During this time, Songwon carefully searched the corpse-dissecting cave but found no treasures. Calling forth the Ghost King, he instructed it to scout ahead and proceed toward the cave entrance. When the Ghost King reached the cave's entrance, it suddenly accelerated, rushing out of the cave and onto the platform outside. Songwon, already prepared for battle, was surprised to find the platform completely empty. Jing Lai and Xing Yishuan were nowhere to be found. Songwon dismissed the Ghost King and suppressed his aura, heading down the mountain. As he just flew off the platform, a sudden loud rumble came from the mountaintop. The entire mountain trembled slightly and countless stones rolled down from its body. Songwon's expression tightened as he quickly accelerated, moving at full speed. At the mountaintop, a majestic and ancient palace stood silently. Within the palace, 4 figures stopped in front of a tightly closed bronze gate. Behind the bronze gate, 8 bronze doors had already opened, and it was the 9th gate that blocked the 4 of them. Xing Wuyo sat on the ground with 9 small green flags floating around him. The small flags spun around him, occasionally shooting green rays of light that struck the bronze door. Every time a green ray hit the door, ripples spread across the bronze surface and the door trembled, clearly nearing the activation of the formation. Xing Gaohan, Jing Wuming, and Yin Shua stood a few feet behind Xing Wenyao. Yin Shua looked at Xing Wenyao's back and spoke. Xing Gaohan, can your Xing family break this formation? It's been over half a year, and this bronze door still won't open. Xing Gaohan replied, Yin Shua, no one asked you to stay here. You can leave if you wish. Kukukui. Yin Shua let out a strange laugh. You people from the Xing family have explored this secret realm multiple times, yet you're blocked by a formation. Did you prepare for nothing in these 300 years? Xing Gaohan said, these 9 bronze doors each have different formations, and they are vastly different from the formations in the current cultivation world. During our last exploration of this secret realm, the Xing family only reached the 7th door. We know nothing of the formations on the 8th and 9th doors, so how could we prepare for them in advance? To break 2 formations in just a few months is already fortunate. Inshua said, in these thousands of years, your Xing family must have gained quite a bit from this secret realm, haven't you? Xing Gaohan's face darkened like water, his gaze sharp. Inshua, do you still want to covet the Xing family's interests? This secret realm was discovered by my ancestors. It naturally belongs to the Xing family. As for you, how did you know about the secret realm and its activation time? Inshuo replied, all the cultivators in the chaotic sea know that my Wuji Island's legacy lies in the Nether Shrine. This secret realm is one of the old sites of the Nether Shrine. I came across its existence in ancient books left behind by the Nether Shrine. What's so strange about that? As he spoke, Inshua glanced at Xing Wenyao, who was breaking the formation, and a deep gleam flashed in his eyes. Inshua indeed learned of the secret realm's existence from ancient texts, specifically from the Nether Shrine's remains on Fangzudo. He was aware of some hidden secrets within the realm, but he did not know its precise location or the activation time. He had made several attempts, either personally or through sending his disciples, to infiltrate Fangzudo and search for information about the secret realm. But the Xing family had kept things extremely secretive, setting up a formation in the valley at the entrance to hide it. Inshua had been unable to find any valuable clues until more than a decade ago, when he accidentally ran into Xing Wenyao at a small trade fair. At that time, Xing Wenyao was desperately searching for a material to enhance his life-bound magic treasure. Though the Xing family appeared united on the surface, internally they were far from cohesive. The three main branches of the Xing family were full of hidden struggles, with constant power struggles, scheming, and fierce internal conflicts. Inshua used this as an opportunity to persuade Xing Wenyao with his silver tongue and some enticing magical materials. Through his manipulation, Xing Wenyao revealed the location and activation time of the secret realm's entrance. Xing Gaohan sharply retorted, nonsense. If what you say is true, the predecessors of your Wuji Island should have opened this secret realm long ago, and it wouldn't be the Xing family doing it now. Chapter 450. Xing Gaohan, I'm not the only outsider entering this secret realm. Why are you only targeting me? Inshua spoke these words while looking at Jing Wuming, his implied meaning clear as day. Xing Gaohan shifted his gaze, now focusing on Jing Wuming, ancestor of the Jing family. How did you come to know of the existence of the secret realm? Jing Wuming replied, there's no wall in this world that doesn't let the wind through. Your Xing family has monopolized this secret realm for over 1,000 years. You should be satisfied. Humph. Xing Gaohan snorted coldly. Our Xing family has invested countless effort and resources into this secret realm, yet the returns have been minimal. Just when we were about to break the formation of the core hall, you conveniently entered to take advantage of it. Is there any fairness in this world? Jing Wuming smiled and said, Brother Xing, our two families, Xing and Jing, have had intermarriage for a long time. We are like one family. My niece is still your legitimate wife. If there are treasures in the hall, the Xing family can take them first, but just leave some for my Jing family. Furthermore, two great fourth-order demons have also entered the secret realm. Inshua and I can help you fight the demons together. The matter of the demons is only what Inshua says. Whether it is true or not, who can say for sure? Xing Gaohan's icy gaze swept over the two of them before he turned away, staring intently at the bronze door, falling into silence. In the hall, the four people Xing Gaohan, Inshua, and Jing Wuming were all late-stage nascent soul cultivators, while Xing Wenyao was a mid-stage nascent soul cultivator. In terms of combat power, the two members of the Xing family had the advantage. However, to prevent being defeated one by one, Jing Wuming and Inshua had formed a subtle alliance. This was precisely why the three sides hadn't erupted into open conflict, instead maintaining a delicate balance. Suddenly, a glowing green light erupted from the bronze door. Xing Wenyao's eyes locked onto the door, his expression serious. His hand seals grew increasingly urgent, and all that could be seen were afterimages of his fingers as they traced through the air. 9 small flags suddenly flew out, resembling 9 sharp arrows shooting towards the bronze door. The formation is about to break. Retreat quickly. Xing Wenyao shouted loudly. Immediately, his figure shot upward, retreating rapidly. A transparent light curtain on the bronze door blocked the 9 small flags. The flags emitted blinding green light, which slashed like countless sharp green blades. Sweeping at the light curtain, a dazzling green light suddenly exploded from the bronze door, resembling the rising sun. Following this, a powerful wave of energy spread out in all directions, and the 9 flags were blasted away without needing Xing Wenyao's reminder. Xing Gaohan, Yin Shuo, and Jing Wuming had already noticed the abnormality of the bronze door and quickly withdrew. Only Xing Wenyao, who was breaking the formation, was the last to leave. His figure spun rapidly through the air, flying hundreds of meters away before dissipating the shock and stabilizing his body. At that moment, the entire hall and even the mountain peak began to shake violently. Countless stones detached from the mountain and rolled down when the light faded. The long, closed bronze door finally opened a small gap, revealing the dark interior. Dark, ink-like ghostly mist began to seep out through the crack in the door. The mist was thick and dense, almost tangible, as if it could condense into liquid. The four of them stared at the bronze door, none of them daring to charge in recklessly. However, their reactions were all different. Jing Wuming looked at the ghostly mist seeping out from the bronze door and couldn't help but gasp in awe. The ghostly mist inside this door is so dense. It's probably not much different from the deepest parts of the misty ghost realm. Xing Gaohan and Xing Wenyao both furrowed their brows, their expressions grave. It seemed they had never expected the mist behind the door to be so thick and impenetrable, leaving them a little caught off guard. This ghostly mist is too dense. The magic tools we've prepared might not last long, Xing Wenyao said, his brow furrowed deeply. Even so, we must go in. The Xing family has prepared for this secret realm for over 1,000 years. How can we retreat now? Xing Gahan's face was as cold as water, his brow furrowed with evident concern. In contrast to the caution of the other three, Yin Shuo wore a smile, appearing unconcerned. He had obtained many ancient texts, some detailing this hall, and he was confident that his knowledge of this hall wasn't any less than that of the Xing family. Moreover, the Corpse King blood refining technique he cultivated made him highly resistant to ghostly mist, and with his nascent soul cultivation, the mist inside the hall posed little threat to him. Three of you, if you're not going in, don't blame me for getting ahead, Yin Shuo said, eyeing the three cautiously before slowly walking towards the bronze door. When he reached the bronze door and saw that Xing Gaohan and Xing Wenyao had no intention of moving, he pushed the door open with a single motion and stepped inside. Jing Wuming had an oil lamp hovering in front of him, the flickering flame inside emitting a soft yellow light. This yellow light acted as a barrier, dispersing the surrounding ghostly mist. Since you two are hesitating, I, Jing, will go first and scout the way for you. Jing Wuming, no longer cautious like when the door first opened, turned into a streak of light and swiftly passed through the bronze door, disappearing into the darkness beyond. He was in such a hurry to leave because once Yin Shuo was gone, he would be left isolated. If the two from the Xing family suddenly attacked, he was no match for them. Xing Gaohan and Xing Wenyao exchanged glances, a smile on their faces as if mocking Yin Shuo and Jing Wuming's foolishness. The Xing family had entered this secret realm several times and had obtained numerous ancient texts and jade slips. How could they be completely unaware of what lay behind the bronze door? Xing Gaohan said, Yin Shuo practices the Corpse King blood refining technique and is immune to the ghostly mist's invasion. With the many ancient texts left by the Hall of the Nether Gods, he should be able to find the exit of the maze. Xing Wenyao nodded and then asked, what about Jing Wuming? Xing Gahan's eyes flickered with murderous intent. He is at the late nascent soul stage, and if he wants to leave the outside world, even if we work together, we can't stop him. But once he enters the maze behind the bronze door, he'll have no place to escape. Since he's seeking death, let's help him fulfill his wish. Xing Wenyao lightly patted the spirit beast pouch at his waist, and a two-tailed nether fox immediately leapt out. Xing Gaohan released a breath of energy into the fox's mouth and nose. This breath was unmistakably Jing Wuming's. Though it was unclear when he had obtained it, the nether fox sniffed the air, then suddenly turned and leapt towards the bronze door. Xing Gaohan and Xing Wenyao quickly followed. Just as the two and the beast left, two figures, one tall and one short, appeared outside the bronze door. The human race is truly born to be lowly even within their own ranks. Deceit and conflict are ever present. The human race is unworthy of ruling this sea. They only deserve to be our food. The speaker was cloaked in a wide black robe, standing over 2 meters tall.